the draft Building Societies Act 1986, Modifications Order 2024.
I call the Minister to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Dowd. It's a pleasure to serve under you. I beg to move that the committee considers the Building Societies Act 1986 Modification Order 2024. The government has made clear its support for building societies which are mutually owned financial institutions specialising in savings and mortgage products, as part of the government's commitment to modernise the Building Societies Act 1986. This order forms part of this commitment. It makes small but much needed updates to the Building Societies Act 1986 to remove some unnecessary corporate governance burdens for the sector, aligning these requirements with those provided to companies operating under the Companies Act 2006. Overall, this supports the government's ambition to unlock the full potential of the mutual sector to help drive innovation and inclusive growth across our country. This order modernises the 1986 Act by making provisions in two places. Firstly, this order amends Sections 60 and 61 of the 1986 Act to remove all references to the normal or compulsory retirement age of 70 for directors. This will update the 1986 Act in line with the Companies Act 2006, providing building societies with greater flexibility in appointing directors and ending an outdated age-based restriction. I should be clear that Section 60, subsection 11 and 13 in the 1986 Act, after the amendment of this SI, will specify that all directors must step down after 3 years regardless of age, although they may be re-elected. Therefore, members will still be able to scrutinise the performance of all directors, even with the removal of this requirement. Secondly, this order amends Section 80 of the 1986 Act, so the current requirement for the balance sheet of a building society to be signed by 2 directors and the CEO is changed to allow 1 director to sign the balance sheet on behalf of the board. This further aligns the 1986 Act with the requirement for companies under the Companies Act 2006, removing an unnecessary burden for building societies. This amendment will not impact on the reliability and accountability of this process, as the full board of a building society is still required to approve the annual reports and accounts, and assigning directors' responsibility is not enhanced by this change. Together, these amendments will modernise the Building Societies Act 1986 and ensure that building societies have the same modern flexibilities as retail banks operating under the Companies Act 2006. These changes have been supported by the building society sector, Mr Chairman, and for instance, the proposal to amend the Act to allow 1 director to sign the balance sheet on behalf of the board was welcomed by the sector in a consultation published under the previous government in December 2021. Whilst the removal of the retirement age for building society directors was not part of this consultation, it was proposed by the Building Societies Association and another large building society as part of their responses, as seen in the consultation responses published in December 2022. It is therefore evident that the amendments have the support of the sector. And as I mentioned earlier, this order forms part of the government's commitment to modernise the Building Societies Act 1986. Some of us may remember that the Building Societies Act 1986 Amendment Act 2024 achieved royal assent earlier this year. This act allows for real-time virtual participation at building society general meetings and also provides the government with powers to introduce subsequent legislation to further modernise the 1986 Act. The government will look to introduce the changes enabled by the Act in due course. Once again, I say to the Shadow Minister, we meet again. But to conclude, this order will make small but important updates to the Building Societies Act 1986, modernising the Act to align certain corporate governance requirements with the same flexibilities afforded to companies under the Companies Act 2006. The order will therefore help to deliver on the government's commitment to unlock the full potential of the mutual sector through ensuring that the legislation supports building societies to grow in the future. And I hope colleagues will help me in supporting these amendments, and I commend this order to the committee.
Thank you. The question is that the committee has considered the Draft Building Societies Act 1986 Modifications Order 2024. Rock on.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Dabb. This may be a record this evening as being one of the swiftest committees. It makes perfect sense to modify the Building Societies Act 1986 to bring it in line with the rest of the Companies Act 2006. We have absolutely no objection to this. It's possible that it may only affect one of the building societies, but nonetheless it does seem fairly sort of old-fashioned to have two separate sets of rules depending on what type of business they are. So we're behind this, and it makes a huge amount of sense, and I won't take the committee's time anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. The question is that the committee has considered the Draft Building Societies Act 1986 Modifications Order 2024. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Sound.